The American Revolution was waged over a time period of 8 years between 1775 and 1783. And up until the Vietnam War, it was the longest war in American history. And not only was it a revolution, but it was also a civil war, in some cases a race war, and also at times a global war. It was happening in all corners of the world. And so that one moment in 1775 where that spark ignites the powder keg, it truly sets the world aflame in more ways than one. My name is Jared Frederick, Jared Frederick, and I am a teaching professor of history at Penn State Altoona. I think one of the really interesting things about the Declaration of Independence is the fact that it really has two meanings. As Americans look at its introduction and its opening, it's full of all sorts of aspirational and ambitious language that makes us feel very good and very patriotic. When you get into the subsequent paragraphs, though, it turns into something else entirely. It is, in fact, a list of complaints. It's a list of grievances, paragraph after paragraph. King George has done this. He has deprived us of this right. He has done this to us. He has limited our ability to do X, Y, and Z. And so what I encourage people to do for the 250th anniversary is to read the Declaration of Independence. It's a living, breathing document, much like our Constitution. And there are many aspects of it that still resonate with issues that we contend with as a society today. And so I think that's why it's incumbent upon us 250 years onward to reflect back on what was happening in 1776. It's easy for us to look back at these men in powdered wigs and funny clothes and to think, what does that have anything to do with my life? But really, history does not exist in a vacuum. And whether we look at the American Revolution or the Civil War or the New Deal of the 1930s, everything that is happening today is an echo of what our forebears were doing in generations past. One of the key tenets of the founding generation was this idea of civic virtue. And that was the concept that everybody has to do something in the name of a greater good, as part of a greater whole. Back in the day, they called it small r Republican virtue. And to be a good Republican meant putting country above self in many cases. And that can take on a variety of forms. It can mean public service, it can mean joining the military, it can mean running for your local school board in a more contemporary context. But all in all, we need to think about how can we give back to society. I think one of the very fascinating and ironic parts of the making of the Declaration of Independence is the building in which it was ultimately approved. We today know it as Independence Hall, but back in the day it was known as the Pennsylvania Assembly Building. And in one half of the building you had the legislature, and in the other half you had the equivalent of the Pennsylvania Supreme Court. This was a building that was the ultimate symbol of royal authority in Philadelphia, the city of brotherly love. And because of these actions that take place through the Second Continental Congress, it no longer is a symbol of royal authority, and it is forever thereafter known as this symbol of American independence and rebellion. One of the great urban legends about the Declaration of Independence is that it was signed on the 4th of July. In fact, it had been approved on July 2nd, but some modifications were made, and then it was adopted with those additional provisions or changes on July 4th. But the document itself was not ready to be signed on what we today know as Independence Day. That took a little bit further time, and most of the delegates of the Second Continental Congress, not all of them were in the room. They were coming and going to and from the states that they belonged to. They were handling emergencies outside of Philadelphia. And so the signing of it was in many ways an afterthought for those who were involved. It was essentially like, hey, you need to sign this still. Come on over here. It was almost like a birthday card being passed around at work. It was a little bit more important than that, but it was kind of that same attitude. When I think about the 250th, I also think about the 100th anniversary of the nation and also the 200th anniversary of the nation. because what we're going through right now, the country is experiencing growing pains in the same ways that our predecessors did. In 1876, you had all of these questions about the expansion of the American West. How are we to treat Native peoples? American Reconstruction after the Civil War was still ongoing, where we're questioning the rights and the plights of African Americans in the South. In 1976, as Americans were commemorating the bicentennial, we had just endured a presidential scandal and humiliation in the aftermath of Watergate. We had just lost the first and longest war in American history. And for all intents and purposes, in 1976, Americans needed a really big boost in morale as they were trying to find new direction for their country. And now, 50 years onward from that, we are living in another echo of what we were experiencing a half century ago, where we're beginning to question, what does it really mean to be an American? And where do we go from here? And what will the next 250 years look like?